Hey guys, this is Jason. I'm bringing you guys a Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for my October 2021 format Monarch deck, and basically this is like the best deck that I have, and it's like tier 0 or at least tier 1, but I think that it was like meant to be tier 0. So if you guys like this deck, or you think that it would be or would not be tier 0, just leave a comment, like, and subscribe. And without further ado, I'll get into the deck profile. So starting off, I play one Caius, and he's just good for banishing 2 cards by himself and basically getting rid of 3, and he's really anti-meta because he can be anti-dark, and if you resolve that effect, you basically win the game. So basically I play 3 copies of Erebus, and he's like the most important Monarch in the deck just because he's the best turn 1 card to go and drop a card from your opponent's hand, and that's like really OP on its own, but the fact that he does not target is also like extremely meta, and he's super good for that. So I play him at 3, and he's good for adding cards from the graveyard, so that's amazing. And I played 3 copies of Ether, and the small engines on these 2 cards, Erebus and Ether, is just ridiculous, and it starts with the deck faster than anything else. So if you're lacking any draw power, you can basically use these to catch up even better than like your extremely ridiculously good draw power. So Ether is like one of the best cards in the deck because you can just bring out 2 Monarchs for the price of 1, which is like the same the same price that Erebus will pay, and also the small engine thing is like really good. And the fact that you can bring Ether out on your opponent's turn is amazing. So you have the full tools to play on your opponent's turn with Ether, so that's automatically great. And I play 1 Karaz, and I've seen people play 3 of this card before, but you actually only need 1, so it's just best at 1 to be an extra D-draw in the deck, being a monster card that can allow you to draw 2 cards, so that's really good. And then I play this package, 3 Adeas and 3 Eidos, so you just want to get into Eidos and basically get the additional normal summon, and Adea can do that when it's normal summoned or special summoned. So this package works extremely good, and both of these cards are synergistic with each other, and the fact that Adea also has the additional effect to add a card from the banish pile is like what makes this deck tier 0. So yeah, Adea is extremely broken and definitely one of the cards that should be hit in this deck, but I don't see this deck actually getting hit. It's kind of like under the radar, or like kind of like off the radar in a lot of ways, but like this deck is like tier 0 and it should probably be hit down again, but I don't think Konami's actually going to do it, but they might. They could. So this is another reason why this deck is definitely tier 0, that you can just run like so many floodgates, and this is a good number to run, I think. You play 2 to 1 on Vanities because he only has 1200 defense, so Majesties is just more consistent to play. But Vanities does have the better effect. It's just that you kind of want to even out the odds on that because Vanities can actually not work for your deck, and that can be a problem. So I play 1 Thestalos in place of the second Vanities, and this just adds like a new utility card to the deck that can actually just look through your opponent's entire hand and rip a card out. So that's amazing that Thestalos actually does that, so that you're playing 4 cards in the main deck that can rip, and that's just really ridiculous. So how that's funny. Speaking of reinforcements of the army, and 1 for 1, this is just the 19th and 20th card, basically for the monsters, and you just play it so that you're basically running extra copies of Adea, and that's like really like the most important, most broken package, so you gotta play it. I played I played Monster Reborn, and I was thinking about playing Foolish Burial, but I did not, and Monster Reborn was kind of a tough decision for the deck because I really could have played anything, but it was like really important that Monster Reborn was like such a good card to run, and it kind of like proved itself last tournament when I got 2nd place, and I'm gonna try and get 1st this week. But Monster Reborn was like a really good card, and it just proves that by playing this card, you can get a 2800 beat stick, like basically no matter what, or automatically. And most of the time, you want to go for Kuraz with it. So that's basically also automatic, kind of like more like 50% automatic that way. But going for Kuraz on Monster Reborn is one of the smartest plays that you can do. So yeah. And then I play 3 copies of Domain. And this card is insane. Just being a searchable floodgate is one of the reasons that is the main reason that you excessively play this card, and that's like a total of 6 floodgates in the main deck. And I don't play erupt in the main deck, but I do side it. So you just want to play those extremely powerful searchable floodgates. And return is also technically searchable, but you just play it at 2 because it's like the key card in the deck. You know what I mean? Like you just get to add Monarchs with this card, which is one of the only cards that can do that out of the deck. But Ether can also technically add to your hand, but it's technically during the end phase. So Return is really, really good, and I wish I could play it at 3, but for reasons that I could not fit that card, I had to play it at 2. So I play 1 copy of March of the Monarchs, and this is one of the main reasons that I kind of played 1 less copy of Return, and just had the 3-2-1 thing going on with Domain, Return to March, and March is really good. You can set up like a really solid floodgate board with March. So basically I play 3 Pantheisms, the most important card in the deck, and I play 3 copies of Tenacity, also basically the second most important card in the entire deck. And they basically can do the same thing where Tenacity just able to search any card you want. That's just amazing, and so much power to that card. And Pantheism also just the same thing. There's so much power to being able to search 2 times in 1 turn anything you want from the deck, spell and traps wise. So Pantheism is also ridiculous like that. But if you just talk about how crazy this draw power is, it gets to be ridiculous, and this card definitely should be put back to 1, but you know, fortunately enough, I get to play 3 copies of this card this format, so this is incredible, and it's one of the best cards I could have possibly asked for off the ban list. And Pantheism is just so good, man. Like drawing 2 again, and drawing 2 again, and even a 4th time is, if we're activating this card 4 times in 1 turn, is like going to happen a lot, and it'll happen on your first turn, and that's just really, really good. Like it's one of the best cards like ever in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh. So you just like wonder how Monarchs were like lucky enough to get that kind of stuff. And also like this card too is like another questionable like luck card to have in the deck. Like just the reason that they printed this card is like unknown. So that's just like one common fact about this deck, is that you would never know why Konami made so many support cards for this deck. But Stormforth is just like one of the best cards in the game for any tribute deck now, and basically you just are able to resolve this card in the draw step, and basically tribute your opponent's monster before they even get to use it, and that's like really ridiculous. So basically the fact that there's a Monarch card that you can search that doesn't target is also another reason that Stormforth is so OP. So you basically have Erebus and Stormforth, which both don't target, and that's incredible. So I played 3 copies of Prime Monarch, and this card is also just insanely good and like super good, super incredible. And I would say that this is just another one card in the deck that can like automatically give you so much and cause you to plus more and more. Like on top of already going like +5 in 1 turn off of Pantheism, you have the ability to go plus a few more off of Prime, and I'll explain basically with my dice that on your opponent's turn you get 1 card, and then on your turn you draw for turn, and then on activation of this card on your turn you get a total basically of 3 cards in 1 turn just by setting a trap card. and that can be crazy. So this card is basically like Reckless Greed with no downfall, and if it goes to your graveyard, it also has an upside that it can be used as a monster, which is also basically the same thing as +1 per turn. So it's literally so powerful and amazingly broken. That's like one of the best additions to the deck, and it was so smart for Konami to make Prime. It's like one of the best decisions that they made for this deck overall. And now this is the final card, Escalation of the Monarchs, and I thought that this card was like so broken when it first came out, and it really is. And I don't know, you know, how this deck got so lucky to get this card in the first place, but it's actually just one of the best cards that I could have possibly asked for. And I like to say that it switches gears to like mode 2, and that's basically like my phrase for this card. That this card like switches gears for the deck, and you're able to just bring out any Monarch you want on your opponent's turn. Instead of just playing Ether on your opponent's turn, you can play any Monarch you want on your opponent's turn, and that's ridiculous because you can start discarding cards every single turn, your turn and your opponent's turn. Anytime they add a card, you know, like they won't get to use it because you just have an automatic spin lockdown. You know, you can basically just discard one card per turn, and that's insane. So Escalation definitely puts your deck into gear 2. And now this deck doesn't actually have an extra deck, so instead of showing the extra deck, which I don't have, I'll just get straight into the side deck. And if you guys want to leave like a comment on why you think this deck, you know, is bad or good because it doesn't have an extra deck or whatever, or if you just want to let me know your opinion on a deck that does not play an extra deck, I mean, that would be great. So just let me know your opinion on this deck that does not have an extra deck, and that would be great. So now just going right into the side deck, I play 1 copy of Majesty's Fiend and 2 copies of Vanity's Fiend, and there's really nothing to explain here. It's just completing the single tribute Floodgate package for the main deck in the side deck. And I play 3 copies of Dinko Seka, and this card is actually really good against decks that set up too much with too many back rows. So if your opponent is playing too many back rows, you can really punish them for playing that way. And Dinko Seka is really good because of that. And I play 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More in the side deck. And this card is really good against decks that overextend, kind of. And if you're going second and you activate Dark Ruler and are able to get rid of like 2 or 3 cards, that can be really good. That can be so positive that you'll probably win the duel off of that. And just the fact that if your opponent has 4 or 5 negates on the first turn, and they only have 1 card left in hand, and you're able to resolve this card and do everything you want off of it, that will definitely most likely win you the duel. And then I play Call by the Grave, and Call by the Grave is just good against decks that play too many hand traps. And if you think that your opponent is going to be siding in hand traps, you might as well side this in. And I play 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. This is just good against decks that have like too many back rows or have like really protective spells and trap cards. And just being the 1 spell card that you can side in that's good for taking out spells and traps is good enough. And you really just want to play Harpies over like anything like Twin Twisters. You would just rather have the single copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, because this deck already has so much destruction. So I just figured that siding the 1 Harpies and Dinko Seka alone should be enough to take care of anything and everything that sets up against you. So I play 1 copy of Solemn Judgment in the side deck, and I've seen a lot of people run Solemn Judgment in the main deck for Monarchs, and I don't think it's good enough for my main deck because paying half my life points is actually a big toll, and that is 1 ticket that I do not want to pay. So I think that I'll lose too many duels if I start playing Solemn Judgment in this deck. But if I side it at 1, it's actually perfect for decks that like to set up really strategic plays. So if you can get rid of one card, get rid of 1 card out of all of the links that they have to set up against you, that can be like the missing link that wins you the duel. So basically, Solemn Judgment is like a really good card for decks that set up like a lot of plays. So the final card in my side deck is